accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Please call the roll.
Mr. Betterbid?
Here.
Ms. Graman? Mr. Johnson? Mr. McCracken?
Here.
Mr. Rich?
Here.
Mr. Shepherd? Mr. Caldwell? Mr. Rosenthal?
Here.
Mr. Reese?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell? Chairman Thomas?
Here, we can do some of the routine business with 6 members. In the agenda, we have minutes of the regular meeting, March 21st, 2013. We have a motion
I move the motion.
and a second.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid? Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, and then also regular meeting, April 4th, 2013. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
It's Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes. Resolutions, Garmin ZBA 13-00004. We need a motion?
I move the resolution. I'll second.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, and then Wilf ZBA 13-00008.
I move.
Second.
Mr. Betterbid?
Yes.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Reese?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, all right, vouchers, May retainer for Mr. Brancho, 865, legal matters from 1/2013 to 3/2013, $159. If there's no question or discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, in the hearing section, we have one. Shri Ramanunja Mission Incorporated, docket ZBA 13-00006. Applicant seeks a D3 use variance and site plan for a house of worship at 619 Elizabeth Avenue, Somerset, block 508.08, lot 50.01 in the R40 zone. Let the record show Mr. Shepherd entering at 7:35, so the item of discussion about less than 7 board members does not have to take place.
Yeah.
We're ready if you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly before I just want to explain a couple things. First of all, we've been working very diligently, and the applicant has been working diligently with staff for probably 6 months, give or take, to try to get the plans in accordance with the staff concerns. They just recently submitted revised plans that staff has not had the opportunity to completely review. I will tell you, though, that if you look at my report, the revised plans do take care of several of the variances that are no longer needed. There's no longer a light fixture height variance. They fixed that. They are under the 15. There is no longer any light trespass also. In addition, as Mark can go into more detail if he wants, but it would seem from a quick review that most of the comments in the staff reports have either been addressed or will be addressed in the future. Just for the record, Mr. Caldwell and Mr. O'Connell both arrived at 7:36, so they're both eligible to vote.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Richard Lupo.
Use the mic.
I don't think the mic's, is the
Speak
mic
into
on?
the mic.
Into
Oh,
the
I'm
mic.
sorry.
It might not be on.
Tap it.
Is that working now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My name is Richard Lupo. I represent the applicant in regard to the variance and site plan approval for 619 Elizabeth Avenue. Basically, what my client is looking to do is to convert the existing...
Can you hold the mic closer to you? I think people in the
I'm
back
sorry.
are having trouble.
is to convert the existing steel barn located in the rear of the single-family home which fronts Elizabeth Avenue into a worship hall containing about 1,000 square feet worship hall. There's also accommodations for the priest and bathroom facilities. If the application were granted, it would provide an inherently beneficial use for the community, that being the worship facility. I don't believe it would cause any significant detriment to the adjacent residential area. The total area, like I said, was approximately 1,000 square foot worship area, with the remaining for the priest and bathroom. The existing single-family home will remain for the accommodate the priest. So the priest who is going to be conducting services is also going to use the single-family home to reside. The site itself provides for 69 parking spaces, 28 of which would be land banked. And yeah, I guess that was in accordance with the initial proposal we discussed at our pre-application meetings. The site itself is going to be serviced by city water. There's water now, water line in front of the property on Elizabeth Avenue. So we're going to hook up both the home and the building into the city water. There's also existing septics there, which are going to be removed and replaced with one new septic system to accommodate both the dwelling and the let's call it temple. The Vince was referring to earlier was the variances. We tried to submit this application, or at least amend the application, to eliminate all but one variance, and that was the D3 variance for the buffer. I'm not sure if Mr. Dominic mentioned, but the county did not require a dedication, and therefore we meet the setback requirements for the home as well. The buffer requirements, if we were to comply with the town requirements concerning the buffer, what we need to do is eliminate, a substantial part of the mature forest or mature trees on the site, some of which I think are 85 or so years old. To request the relief that we're asking, what we'd like to do is to leave the majority of the mature trees in the area and then fill in with evergreens and other shrubs to provide an adequate buffer to the surrounding home. The preservation, of course, I think would be beneficial to the community at large as well, and I think it would certainly be beneficial to preserve the mature trees. So it takes forever for those to ever come back. Also, the lighting plan was amended to provide basically to comply with the existing code. We'll have a traffic expert to testify regarding the traffic. I think the conditions will be minimal. And basically, that's it. With that being said, I'd like to call the representative of the applicant to just briefly discuss the use that they intend to bring to this facility.
Okay.
I'd like to call Shyam Srivasan, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, right over there.
Oh, here.
Mm-hmm.
Although the other mic is probably the one that usually works.
No, it's working. Perfect. This guy's good with the mics.
Sir, you raise your right hand for me. Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes,
Okay, spell your last name.
Sreeni, V as in Victor, Asan.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you tell me what your position is with the applicant, please?
Yeah, I'm currently a board member of Sri Ramanuja Mission, as well as the Secretary of New Jersey Operations.
Okay, but briefly for the benefit of everyone, I guess, including the board, can you please tell us the hours of operation?
Yeah, so the hours of operation we plan is going to be Monday through Friday or work days. It'll be morning 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. for 3 hours, and evening 5 to 8 p.m. for 3 hours. Actually, 4 to 8 p.m. for 4 hours.
And what do you expect? What type of attendance do you expect in these sessions?
On weekdays, we expect about 5 to 10 families in total, or I forgot to say about the weekend, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., that's 12 hours in the weekend, and we expect a total of 25 families for the 12-hour duration.
And they would attend throughout the day, I guess, throughout the 12 hours at
No, it's
different intervals?
Just going to be floating population, people come and go. Max time, on an average time, they would spend about 30 minutes in the facility.
Okay. And
Excuse me, 25 families,
In total,
how many people do you estimate that would
yeah, I would say family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids,
be? So about 100 people?
about total 100, yeah.
And
And they won't be there at that one single point of time, it's throughout the day.
you don't have one consolidated
There,
service?
the peak hour typically during weekend is going to be between 9 and 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. So that's about an hour and a half in the morning on weekend and 1 hour in the evening. But rest of the time, it's just going to be floating population. So during peak hours in the morning, we expect about 12 families max, and rest of the day, it's just going to be trickling number of people coming in.
Now, the reason I asked, I passed that site, that barn you're going to use as a church, doesn't look like it could hold 100 people. Say.
It won't be, yeah, that's what I was saying. We don't expect 100 people to be there at any one point in time. So in total, if you just look at who comes and goes, in total, we expect about 25 families. But at any one point in time, it's going to be a very small fraction of it.
But when you say 25 families, isn't that potentially 100 people?
Yeah, to,
And I missed it, it's my issue here.
If
How many
if I may,
did
maybe.
you say over the 8-hour day? 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.? How many did you say?
yeah, during 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., it'll be in total 25 families coming and going.
25 total families?
Total
8
families.
a.m. to 8 p.m.?
Yeah.
That's on weekends only? That's on weekends only?
No, weekdays, it's going to be 8 a.m. till 11 a.m. in the morning, and 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the evening.
Mark, do we know what the safe occupancy of that size building is?
No, I don't know, but they'll have to, when they submit for building permits, it'll be a certain use group, and they'll have occupancy levels for the different building codes. So, and they do have an architect here, perhaps he can answer that.
So if we said that during peak hours, that
Do you have an architect here?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought I said, okay.
if we have 10 families on a weekend between 9 and 10:30 a.m., that's a peak hour that we consider. That's 10 families is about 40 people is what we are expecting.
Okay, but-
So they would go at 10:30.
Okay, but what's the control that all 25 families don't show up at the same time?
Yeah, we would have segmented prayer hours, so it won't be that everyone comes at the same time. So typically, not everyone shows up at the same time. So if they do, I mean, obviously we can do segmenting and we can have different prayer sessions for different group of people.
What would be, what would you anticipate the largest number of people there simultaneously?
Like I said, during the peak hours is about 10 families, so that would be about 20 adults and 20 children.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the same question differently.
How do we size the septic system for that?
Well, the septic system is sized by Patty, and Patty's already taken a look at that, and it is what it is. Whatever, how big the building is determines how big the septic has to be, so they have to comply with the health department.
Okay. Alan, you gonna?
So you're saying that you're not going to have any functions where all of the people in your,
If we had, there are certain days which is important days, but if we know that the occupancy is not going to be fitting within that premises, we would rent a hall, a public hall, which we've done in the past before. We would rent a public hall outside of this premise and have that function conducted in that hall. So in the past, we've had Edison volunteer, fire squad facilities and things like that. So we would typically do that. So this is used mainly for the regular day events, not like big functions. So if we did have those functions, we would plan for something outside of that facility.
That would mean, you're saying no weddings, no funerals?
No, it won't be there, yeah. It is purely a prayer hall, no functions for people there, yeah. No weddings, no funerals, not there.
Go ahead.
Can you, maybe it'd be beneficial to explain, the seating or lack of seating arrangement here, because I know that can be confusing, and I think it was Mr. Reese at the end, you would ask that question. Can you just explain how a prayer session basically is
Sure.
performed?
Okay, so typically during a prayer session, at the altar, the priest would be there. He would be standing and doing the priest services to the deities. And the parishioners would come and sit on the floor or stand. There is no procedure to sit in a chair or a bench in a typical Hindu temple. So they would either sit on the floor or just stand, pray, and then offer their services to God and then leave. So in a sense, the requirement there is just going to be pretty wide open space, not needing any furniture of any sort for people to come and sit.
Yeah, that's familiar to me. I just spent 3 weeks in Asia, so I visited an awful lot of temples there, so I'm familiar with what you're just saying.
Right. It would be like a meditation pose, yoga pose, sitting on the floor with legs folded.
And it's your intention to comply with the capacity limits that may be imposed by the fire marshal?
Definitely, yes.
Okay.
Yes. We would abide by any rules and comply with it. So if we, like I said, if we did predict a bigger turnout of any function, we would do it outside of the premise or seek for a different application for one time or use of.
What would be our definition of a bigger function?
Any
In terms of numbers, I mean, if you're expecting this over X number of people, then it's a bigger function, so it goes off premises?
No, there are certain important religious days, typically a New Year's Day, which is like a traditional Hindu calendar New Year Day, not January 1, but comes typically mid of April. That one day would be a big day where everyone wants to start the day, start the year by going to the temple. So that would be one such occasion. But then Diwali is the other function, big function that typically happens around October timeframe. So if you count these days, it's going to be 2 or 3 at max per year. So it won't be like too many such functions. And the other thing that unique about Hindu tradition is it doesn't happen on weekends. It comes on weekdays. People go to work. So it's not like every function is going to have a big turnout. It depends on whether it happens on a weekend or weekday. So if it happens on a weekday, people just do it at their home and just keep going. And a weekend would be a regular weekend. It doesn't have any special thing because the day is gone. The important day is on a weekday and it's gone. So weekend is just going to be a regular service.
Well, what's the number, Bob? I mean, there's got to be a number that puts them over, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what that would be. If we're going to be the first to say.
Yeah. What number, how many people determine, at what point do you determine that you need to rent a hall?
Whatever is the occupancy max that we get from the fire marshal. So if the fire marshal comes and says we have 65, 70 people occupancy, and we would, if we expect more than 70, because we know typically what to expect. And if we expect more than 70, then we would rent a place instead of having that function. And if it turns out that people do come, then we can have segmented, like I said. We could ask them to come at a different service. We can have at different intervals, like 9 to 10:30 and 10:30 to 12 on a weekend. So it doesn't have to be that everyone comes in the hall, in the premises at the same time.
Will the priest have a secretary or other worker working along with him? I mean, like, how do you contact the people?
Contacting people is through email chains and all those things. So they do RSVP. We have email groups in which we announce information about what's going on.
Does the priest do that, or does a worker do that?
We, as volunteer organization, we would do. Priests would not typically do it. Not savvy enough, usually. So we would do that.
Okay.
Where are you doing all this now?
Currently, we are doing it as from home. We don't have any facility at this point. This is the first acquired premise that we have. At this point, the deities are in volunteers' home. In my home, I have the deities, and weekends we just take it to different folks' home and perform the prayers. So it's on request from various volunteers we do that. We don't have a place today.
Any other questions?
Why, this is interesting, I've always associated the word mission with a sort of a Christian-based facility. It's interesting that you call it a mission. I've never heard, this is a Hindu facility, right?
That's right, yeah.
And the use of the word mission is interesting. Is there something to be associated with that? Is there some sort of an outreach aspect to this?
There is again, the uniqueness of this is, the Ramanuja mission is a name only here. It is actually a branch of a multi-century old hermitage in India. It is, the preceptor goes all the way to 1017 AD. The first person. Ramanuja is a name. If you Google search, you can find out that in 4 years we are celebrating his 1000th birth anniversary. So the mission is just a name coined over here in the US as a branch of that, because it's very difficult to pronounce the original name, Srimad Andavan Ashramam, which is the hermitage. So mission doesn't really have an outreach. The main purpose of this is to promote, practice, and preserve the tradition, the Vedic tradition, for mainly the younger generation Indian Americans. This is very, the services are in Sanskrit or in Tamil, which is again a very old South Indian language, is as old as like 5,000 years or more. So some of these histories are actually disappearing from our younger generation. So we want to maintain that, preserve that for the children of the next generation. That's the main purpose. There's no outreach. You cannot really convert, and that's not the practice of this. There's no outreach as such, but we do want to promote the concept of surrender to God, absolute surrender, service to humanity, being humble, paying respect to elders, not hurting anyone, peace-loving, being vegetarian, not hurting even animals. There's a lot of good things that we want to inculcate in the next generation.
Where most of your members live? Or where are they going to be coming from for the most part?
It's, there's no membership as such. It is just a way of life, as a practice. There's no membership per se. So there's no real number of people that would come that we know of. These are just, any practicing Hindu who wants to offer service to God. And
maybe I should ask it differently. What makes this location unique and important for this institution then?
Sure. There's a large Indian diaspora here in Somerset and Franklin Township. Definitely it is one area where we do have quite a lot of following about Hinduism and the tenets of that. There are various different subgroups of Hinduism. This is a southern India. So this is not a larger India, Hinduism. This is the southern Indian way of worshipping. So there are quite a lot of folks over here. We don't have a temple that caters to this particular community. There are Gujaratis, there are Punjabis, there are other groups, which, as you may know, South India doesn't speak the most prominent language of India. So the prayer services are offered in a different language for most part. So it's a very small subset of the population that we're talking about here. But in Franklin and Somerset, we have quite a lot of folks.
And those are the people from which you are drawing this Just trying to,
There is no growing,
just trying
it's
to
just
get an
preserve.
idea where how your traffic engineer puts a report
Right, there is
together,
no
so he knows
growing-
where-
Drawing, not growing, drawing. In
Yeah,
other words, you're pulling
That's right.
from where you're coming from.
that's right, yeah. We just want to preserve, as in give a place of worship for them in the language that they are comfortable with or they're used to. That's basically the premise with which the traffic study has been done and other things have been done, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have members, how do you raise funds? You obviously need quite a bit of money for this purchase and this change here.
Yeah, so like I said, weekends we go to different individuals' home. We have collected funds as we go. It is whatever they want to give as offering to God. That's what, so we've been doing it throughout the US actually, I would say. We have volunteers in Washington, Virginia area. We have volunteers over here. So I have a family with 2 young kids. So weekends, one of the weekends is really taken up by them. So I offer the other weekend to offer services, and I have other volunteers, sitting behind me who does very similar things. So it's giving one day of the week to offer our services to God through going to different individuals' homes. And we have collected funds from 1997 onwards. So it's been a long time coming. So it's not really that happened overnight. So and the funds that we're talking about here is not in tens of thousands of dollars. So every time we go, it's $500, $1,000. It's a long, hard work. But we've come this far. But when we have a place of worship, people do offer, services, and that definitely has some revenue potential too.
Do you rent this property? I see that the owner is Al Galvacki.
No, when we initially applied, we hadn't closed on the property yet.
Oh.
Now the applicant is the owner.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Have you identified, and your attorney has referred to the person who's running the services as a priest. Have you identified who the priest will be at this facility?
We were close to identifying, but it didn't work out for some reason. So we are in the lookout for a priest, yeah.
Okay.
With the right kind of knowledge and all. So it's difficult to find, but we are in the process of looking out. In the next month or so, we should be able to close on that.
Right. And it will only be the priest for the facility that lives in the additional house.
That's
there.
right. The house is purely a residential premise for the priest to live
Yeah.
in. So it's easier for that person to just go and offer the services every day. It's like a quarters for the priest.
I probably missed it, but where did you say you function now as far as religious services go?
We don't have a full-fledged place, like I said. We have volunteers as home where I have one of my study room dedicated for having all the deities in my place. And I have it, other volunteers have in their homes every now and then. And we offer the services on the weekend. We take the idols of the god and take it to different individuals' home. So we don't have a place where we function at this point. Except the fact that we have purchased this property, but it's not really functional in that sense.
The other question that came to mind, and it's relevant, but in some ways it isn't, because this township has had experience with at least 2 facilities that were approved, immediately started construction, and have taken 8, 9, 10 years to finish, resulting in a great disruption to the neighborhood that they're in. And one of them actually even was almost creating blight because they cleared a plot of land immediately and did nothing to it for years. Is your group prepared, I'm not talking about how long it takes to start construction, but once you start working, are you prepared to routinely move forward to completion in a timely manner so that you have the property is a little narrow there. You have places on either side of you, and the building can be disruptive. To go on for 8 or 9 years may not be fair. So are you able to represent that you can move forward and once you start, anyway, and complete it.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I could help with that one. I happened to meet the builder in the hall earlier, and basically said he could get this thing done relatively quick, within months, not years. It's converting what's there. I think the architect is going to testify that they're going to just remove the steel siding and put up a board with stucco. We have a sample here as well to show. But I think using the existing structure is going to alleviate a lot of the concerns about a prolonged construction project. I did not intend to call him, but I mean, if you would like to, he's certainly in the audience if you want to get an idea how long it would take.
And we'll see how it goes on.
Thank you.
Any other questions right now?
Mr. Chairman, just real quick on that, I think when you see the proposal, I think you'll see that this proposal is a good deal more modest than the other application that's been somewhat of a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, we as a group, we are not, we don't believe in ornate, very grand structure. We are using the existing storage facility and converting that into a place of worship. So with as minimal as required, rather than trying to build something which could take many years.
Okay, I'm just happy to hear it on.
Can you make that a condition, Bob? Is that possible?
Well, we can make it a condition that once construction or work begins, it proceeds in an orderly fashion to completion. We can do that. Maybe we'll, as Mark said, maybe when we see more of the details, we might not find it necessary, but that's certainly a possibility, yes. You're not finished, right, with this witness?
I'm finished, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no.
All right, then we'll open to any other board questions?
Just about the children. Do you actually have the children at the prayer services at the same time, or are they in?
No, it's the same. I mean, they come with their parents. Yeah, I have a 9-year-old. She would come with me when I go, and she would come back with me when I come back. So it's just getting them the experience for sitting that half an hour, doing the religious services and come back, yeah. So it would be at the same time.
That does bring up another quick point. And other than in relation to when you have prayer services, are there any plans for this to be any type of daycare center or school?
No.
Okay.
Nothing, yeah. We don't,
Right.
yeah, we don't intend to do for anything else.
Other than
Just a
prayer.
plain hall with the altar for the deities, and that's it, yeah.
There won't be a religious school of any kind?
No.
All right, then now we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who would like to ask this witness any questions concerning his testimony? If so, come up to the mic. Both,
Step up to
either
the
one
mic.
of you first. This part of the hearing is limited to asking the witness questions. And of course, he can only answer questions based on his testimony or.
No, you got to fix the mic.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, if I could just add that witnesses that are going to follow are going to describe what's actually proposed in terms of the building, the size, the screening, the parking lot, et cetera. So if you have questions about that, that's going to be for future people.
And we need your name before.
Okay. Let me introduce myself. My name is Josefino Feliciano. I'm the owner of the immediate neighbor. My concern is this. When you have your festivities or your services, do you use speakers?
We would not use the speakers, no. The hall itself is going to be so small, we won't use the speakers.
The reason I'm asking this because I know, with due respect, Muslim people use speakers.
We won't use speakers, no.
And their services is up to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they start again around 4 o'clock in the morning. All right? My concern is the noise, because right now the property is residential. And the impact of these things here will be very much on me.
Right.
Now, the thing is that you mentioned around 60 parking lot or 69 parking lot only. The way I heard, it will be around 120 parking spaces. Is that true?
No, actually, yeah, we,
Again, sir,
yeah.
sir, over here. We're going to hear, they're going to have an engineer that's going to walk you through what's actually proposed in terms of the building and the parking lot, et cetera.
Because, okay, now another question is there any environmental impact study done on this thing?
Yes. Yes.
That would be another
Yeah,
witness.
yes, yeah.
Right.
That's for a different witness, yeah. But going back to your question about the mic, no, we won't use any speaker of any of that sort, right? Any amplification of sort, we won't use it.
Can we go as far then as to say that all activity would be within the temple
Within the building, that's right, yes.
And soundproof, because I know a lot of temples I visit in Asia, there's continuous music.
We won't put that, no. If at all, it's going to be within the hall, not outside.
Yeah, because as I mentioned before, normally these Muslim people, again, with due respect, they have 4 speakers on the north, south, and east-west direction, so that the broadcast will be heard all over the neighborhood.
Right.
Now, especially when you have your services at night until 8 p.m., it will be disruptive.
We won't use, by then, most of the traffic would be gone. Like I said, the peak hour would be between 6:30 and 7:30 in the evening. So even so, we won't use any amplification of any sort.
He can't be more clear on that.
And if I might add, these are Hindus, not Muslims. That's a whole different.
I understand that. That's why I'm saying, you know, as I said, with due respect.
Yeah.
All right? Now, I have few questions, but I think some people would like to ask more. But, you know, another question that I have is that, as I said, did you make any environmental impact study already? That includes the increase in traffic?
Sir, over here at the end, we're going to have an engineer and a planner testify as to those details. What we're really here to do is just ask questions on anything that this witness, the other witnesses are going to come up, and you can feel free to come up and ask them questions in their testimony.
The reason I'm asking about this thing in the sense that, you know, there is a water, right now the house is being, they're using only well and septic. And mine also is, I'm using my deep well and also the septic. Now, the thing there is that you'll be adding additional septic in order to service for the people, 120 people or so.
Okay, that's a good question, but you're asking the wrong person. Wait until the engineer testifies, and you can question him all you want.
Okay, I just want to bring the, you know, the question because.
But it's counterproductive, right, at this point. That's not his area of responsibility at the moment.
All right, thank you.
Where do you live?
Where do you live, sir? Where do you live? Are you the closest one to him?
On the
I'm
picture, on the front,
Walk
come around front.
See the picture. Show us.
I'm on 615, immediate neighbor.
On the top of the picture.
This one here.
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
thank you. And there was another gentleman back here. Want to come up? No, come on up.
No. All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
come on up.
First, I respect you for working.
Wait, first you have to tell us who you are
My name is-
before you respect them.
And right into the
Cindy
mic.
Hazel. My family lives at 595 Elizabeth Avenue. You purchased this property without the proper approvals to build something, so you have money invested in it, and now you're asking for a small amount of approval. You already want 68 parking spaces, even though you say there won't be that many people there at the same time. What guarantee does the neighborhood have that this isn't going to grow?
At this point, we have no plans. I'll wait for the planning engineer to talk about the parking. It might be the requirements.
Regardless of
But
the parking, I'm
on-
talking
on-
about you're planning for more people to be there than you say are going to be there by virtue of the number of parking spaces.
Our plan currently stands as using this storage facility to whatever the occupancy level it is. We cannot go beyond that based on the laws and the compliance that we have to.
But
Parking,
you're already applying.
Ma'am, and also the parking is based on township regulations.
Yes.
It's not that they came up with a number out of midair and decided.
All right.
And
But-
the other thing is,
My concern is that this is going to grow. We're a residential area. We're peaceful there. It's always been residential. Our quality of life is already impacted by all the development on the other end of Elizabeth Avenue. We can't get out of our driveways during the day. If we open the door to one group, then the rest of the properties in the area can change as well.
what you have to understand, and I'm jumping in before he comments, is contrary to what you started with, this is an approved use for this property.
Then why are
The
we-
use is a conditional approved use. They're here because of a buffering variance that they need. They have the size, property size, they have the acreage, and religious institutions are permitted, conditionally permitted in all R40 or most residential zones in the township. So it's not a use that's just, that, we're trying to just shove in there, or they're trying to. It is an approved use, and if you notice, many other streets relatively close to Elizabeth Avenue have many, many religious institutions there.
And if I could speak to the concept of it growing, I have no idea. We don't know exactly what their future plans are, but what they're proposing right now is for that facility of that size. If they were to want to expand, they'd have to come back to this board for another approval. The other thing, too, is they're not going to be on sewer. They're going to be on septic.
You just made
And-
my point.
Okay,
Have
and,
to Come back.
may I finish? And they're going to have to design that system, the septic system, to the degree that it fits the capacity of that building alone. So they would have to completely redesign their septic system and propose something much larger in the future. So it's not like they can get a permission for this today, and in a year from now, they can just make it 5 times the size. A whole bunch of different steps would have to happen for that to occur. And as far as,
Steps that are happening now.
well, they're here for a place of worship to convert that barn. That's what they are proposing right now. If they want to do something more down the road, they have to come back, more hearings, they have to redesign the site, redesign the septic, and everything else. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, that's what they're proposing, and I'm telling you, it's not that easy for them to just expand. As the chairman said, the parking that they're proposing is based on our code. I think you do bring up an issue, a good question, which is, we've heard the testimony about the number of people. Why are they proposing 69? And I think that's one of the issues that we should discuss later on. They are proposing to what's called land bank some spaces, not construct all of the required spaces. So I think one of the questions that we should have for the engineer is, could they land bank more? Do they really need 69, or maybe they can get away with some smaller number of spaces right now and reduce the amount of clearing on the site and pavement, et cetera?
When they land bank, if they're approved for 69 spaces and they land bank 20, they're actually building 49. However, if they need to build the other 20, then they would not be back for another hearing if we approved the 69 spaces. But there's a long way to go before that all happens tonight, and I'm sure we'll be discussing number limits on members, people, or there's a lot of things. As Mr. Healy said, you bring up some good points. This is just the first witness.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if we'll close to the public for now.
I have I want to just go over one thing again. What are your hours of operation going to be?
Okay, there are going to be 2 different ones. One, weekdays and regular work days. It's going to be 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and evenings between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Yep.
On
Weekend?
weekends, it's 8 a.m. till 8 p.m.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m.?
That's right.
Okay. All right, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Might as well address the next issue that's going to come up too, in terms of hours of operation and lighting. There doesn't seem to be a need here to burn any lights all night long. That's the first thing. Second, I would think it's possible that the lighting should be shut down within an hour or a half hour after the last service ends. And I also think that your lighting should be put in stages where on a weeknight, when you think you have only 10 families or 5 families, you only light the parking lot closest to the facility, and the outer areas of the parking lot does not get lit.
Sure.
I think that's in the interest of the neighborhood.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that'll be addressed by our engineer, but the lighting plan that we submitted, the lights, they automatically go off. So when there's no traffic, the lights will go off, and if there's no event or what have you, or no services, the lights will be off. So it is, they put electronically controlled. That was discussed at the pre-meeting conference, and we agreed with that. Certainly, we want to minimize any lighting issues with the neighbors.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, I also wanted, just for the right, it was 41 spaces, I believe. I think you said 49, but.
Well, I said if you land bank 20, I was just.
Oh,
making
okay, I think right,
on that.
41, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. I'd like to call Gregory Oman, please, our engineer. Well, I also would like to state for the record, I think I neglected to request also a waiver for the sidewalks along Elizabeth Avenue. I believe when I was initially opened, I requested, the variance and the site plan approval, but I think I neglected the sidewalk waiver, and Mr. Roman is also going to address that. Okay, Mr. Roman, would you like to state your name for the record, please?
Sure. Gregory Oman, O-M-A-N.
We've seen you before, correct? You're licensed in New Jersey.
It's been a little less than 10 years ago, but
As
yes.
soon as you're sworn in, we'll accept.
Wow.
Thank you.
Okay, will you raise your right hand for me, solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roman, can you, for the benefit of the board, can you state your professional background and experience, please?
Sure. I'm currently...
We're accepting it.
You're
We've
accepting.
seen you before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, you're familiar with the zoning ordinance of the town and the site plan, right?
That's correct.
And you prepared this plan and this proposal on behalf of the applicant?
Correct.
Okay. You had an opportunity to review the agenda reports as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please explain the site conditions and basically the overall plan, please, for the benefit of the board and the audience?
Sure. Would you like me to mark this in as A1 or?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any way you can position that so the public can see it? Maybe the easiest thing is to move it over this way. They all seem to be over there. That should work.
Who the hell can see
If you
it?
can't see it, you'll have to move up because the board needs to see it as well. Can you guys see it?
What we marked in as A1 is entitled Existing Conditions Exhibit. It's basically just an aerial photo of the surrounding area showing the site boundary and the surrounding road network. The site is identified as a 6.01 acre property, identified by the Township tax map as Block 508.02, Lot 50.01. The property falls within the R40 zone, which is the single-family residential district. As previously testified to, we are looking for a use variance, a D variance, due to the lack of the conditional use. It is a conditional use in this particular zone, and we are not providing the required ordinance buffering around the perimeter of the site. The site is bound by Elizabeth Avenue to the west, Township-owned open space to the south and east, residential single-family homes to the north, to the west side of Elizabeth Avenue, and also to the south of the Township-owned property fronting on Amwell Road. The property is approximately 600 feet from the signalized intersection of Amwell Road and Elizabeth Avenue.
And what's the other, if you continue down Elizabeth Avenue, is the next one Weston?
Yes.
The next street?
Right.
Correct.
Next signalized.
Continues down to, yes.
Okay.
And eventually to New Brunswick. Today, the site was previously used and known as the Love Nest Horse Farm. It was a boarding location for horses. It currently today contains a 2-story, 4-bedroom, single-family house, approximately 65 feet off of the right-of-way of Elizabeth Avenue. Just about 150 feet to the east of that is the 2,000-square-foot maintenance building or barn, if you may. To the northeast of that, about 80 feet or so, are single-family garages. And throughout the remaining western half of the property, there are some other maintenance buildings, sheds, trailers, that sort of thing. The eastern half to 60% of the site is primarily just open space, some horse shelters and wooded areas, especially along the southern and eastern properties. Access to the property are by 2 curb cuts along Elizabeth Avenue, one being utilized strictly for the single-family house. The second, just to the north of that, which actually allows a gravel driveway to provide access to the rear of the property and to this 2,000-square-foot maintenance building. Today, the site is fed through a well in the front yard of the single-family house that provides water service to both the single-family house and the maintenance building, along with 2 septic systems, 2 septic tanks, one for each the single-family house and the maintenance building. The applicant has hired an inspector to review the current septic on site. The septic design and actual tank for the maintenance building has not been used in quite some time and cannot be used. A full replacement would be required. The septic system for the existing house, while it is in operation and can be used, has seen better days. So the recommendation was to eliminate both of them and combine them into one, which I'll talk about briefly. This particular application, as previously testified to, is to convert the 2,000-square-foot maintenance building into a place of worship, basically changing the principal use of the site as it stands today from the single-family house to the place of worship in the proposed conditions. The single-family house will then be utilized by the priest and would then become the accessory use to the property in the proposed conditions. Access is going to remain as is off of Elizabeth Avenue. A single driveway, 26 feet in width, will be paved and curbed based on our conversations and meetings with the board's professionals to provide access to the rear of the property along the eastern side of the maintenance building, which is being converted to the church. Based on the township ordinance, parking is required at 1 per 3 seats. In the case where there are no seats to be used, which is what is occurring on this particular site, it is based on 1 parking space per 15 square feet. So based on the 1,020 square feet that is going to be utilized for prayer, that would equate to a requirement of 68 parking stalls. What we are proposing is to construct 42 of those parking stalls on the initial construction and land banking an additional 27 just to the north. Reason being, 68 parking stalls based on 15 square foot, which is a general use for a typical space for a person in a restaurant or in a prayer hall. You're basically looking at anywhere from 68 to maybe 80 people that generally can be the maximum amount within a building based on typical design standards. Fire code has a little different capacity rating, but based on typical engineering practice, 68 people would generally be the average norm and max that you could have. So from looking at families coming to the site, if you assume 3 people in a car, that it would be typically how you would, equivalent how many parking stalls you need. Even a worst case of 2 people per car, having 68 people, you would need 34 parking stalls. So in our opinion, the 42 that we were proposing in the initial design and construction would adequately be able to supply this building. The 27 land bank could be constructed at a later date, whether the applicant or the town feels that it's necessary. All design calculations that have been submitted on this application include the 27 land bank parking stalls in terms of impervious coverage, drainage, utilities, lighting, et cetera. During our review...
Wait. So what we're going to do is what you are going to do is you are going to create how many parking spaces? 41?
42.
42. I wasn't listening quite carefully enough. 42, and the assumption is that there'll be 3 people in a car?
General assumptions for parking, especially when you're anticipating mostly families, which they are.
Yeah, right, okay, I'm with
What
that.
would be an average of 3 people per car.
Okay, so
I said worst case, even if you had 2 people.
we all live here that's what we're here for, is the worst case.
Sure.
Now, so that would mean that if the worst case and everybody showed up at the same time, that means we would have 120 people on the property at the same time, according to the way you're planning, correct?
If you average 2 people per car and every parking stall, all 60.
That'd be 84.
Would be utilized, that would be the case.
That'd be 84, no, that'd be 88 if it was 2 people a car. So it'd be over 120 if it was 3 people a car. Now, we keep kind of like, what's the occupancy of the building?
7. Yeah. Again, we had a preliminary discussion with the building department on
Okay.
this, and they look at it differently than typical traffic and engineering and
Yeah,
spacing it.
right.
And of course, they're going to look at it as worst case. They generally will look at a capacity of a building with this type of use anywhere from 7 square feet to 15 square feet.
Right.
Okay? 7 square feet is literally probably, I'm not exaggerating where I'm sitting.
Okay.
Assuming 1,020 square feet, people blocking the doors, even at 7 square feet, meaning there would be literally a person sitting.
Cheek by jowl. Okay, how many
You're
people?
at about 145
Okay.
capacity.
All right, thanks.
In terms of the stormwater management for the property, it currently drains from an east to west direction, and as it encroaches into the central part of the site, it kind of swales off to the north and south. In our drainage analysis, we had some soil testing done on site, and we're pleasantly pleased to find that the site had a very low groundwater elevation and quite a bit of percolation on site, which we used to our advantage to meet the 3 major criteria for stormwater management based on the township ordinance and the state standards. For the parking lot and the surrounding areas, we used a typical stormwater collection system consisting of inlets and pipe network that conveys the stormwater to an infiltration basin located at the northwest corner of the property. This infiltration basin is going to be able to meet all township and state standards for rate of runoff from the site, groundwater infiltration, and also water quality.
So there's going to be various places where the water will collect on the site, and then it will be piped into this retention basin?
Into this infiltration basin, correct.
Okay, and then how does the water leave the basin? Does it just perk out of there, or is there a stream, or?
For the small, typical, standard water quality design storm, which is a very low, it's over a 2-hour period, 1 1/4 inches, it'll percolate into the ground.
Percolate, okay,
Any
good.
storms over that will then leave and get piped into an existing structure out in Elizabeth Avenue.
Okay.
As I had mentioned, the applicant had the on-site septic reviewed, and they've come to the conclusion that what they are going to do is replace both septic systems. There will be a new septic tank for both of the buildings with a common septic field between them, where this will flow, An application has already been made to Patty Ellett over at Somerset County Health Department, and basically, she has reviewed it. We have not received an approval yet, but are hoping to soon. Based on the existing utilities out on Elizabeth Avenue, we are also going to be extending a 6-inch water main into the site, which will serve both the single-family house and the church. The existing well located in the front or western side of the single-family house is still going to be utilized, but only for irrigation purposes.
Now, we just got a letter today from fire prevention that that should be an 8-inch pipe.
Yes. I literally got that letter as I walked in the door before. And we will agree to that comment, to increase that 6-inch to an 8-inch. I was just holding that off to the end.
30-foot driveway?
That I'd like to talk about in a little bit. Along with the package that was submitted to the board, we have also produced a lighting plan, which has basically been designed to meet the township standards. The fixtures are 150-watt metal halide fixtures mounted at 14.5 feet high. There are a couple of wall fixtures that are being mounted to the building to provide adequate and safe light levels throughout the parking lot. My typical recommendation in terms of turning lights off is generally an hour. As was previously mentioned, anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. Generally, I like after the last service, an hour. Gives them enough time to clean up, get anything done that they need to, and then be able to leave the site safely. In terms of having select areas of the site lit, while I like the idea, I always have to think about the responsibility and the legal end of it. And my concern with only having a portion of the site lit is that one instance where the one parking lot all the way in the end is used and somebody gets hurt. And it leaves us open, possibly if it's approved and required that way, would leave the town open. And I would kind of ask that we can basically keep the whole entire site lit up to an hour after the last service.
Well, I would think if you need the space, the extra spaces, that you would light another section. But I think this setup has been used in the past, and I haven't heard that there's any major issues with it. I don't understand out there in that area why the whole 6 acres needs to be lit, or the whole parking area needs to be lit when it's not, if it's not being used. It's being used, it's being used, but
Well, let me ask what may be a dumb question. Can you have the parking lot lights on 2 different switches? You know, have the one switch for maybe the front field, if you're going, during the week, you only have 4 or 5 people parking in the front area, flip that front switch, and if you're going to have a larger group of people, you flip both. Is that something that can be done?
It could all, I'm not an electrician, but I know it could all be done through
come on.
circuits. I don't see why it couldn't be done through separate circuits, and I guess it would then be left to the responsibility of the applicant to make sure that they're on
It's
when they
almost
need
the
to be.
equivalent of, well, if you're not using that room, turn the light off, but if you're using both, turn them both on.
Yeah, I mean, this board and the planning board have consistently recommended that, and the applicants have consistently complied with that. We got it all over town, where the bigger parking lots are on 4 or 5 different circuits. Some of them are automated, some of them are by the switch, so honestly, it's not a big deal to be done. It's, the electrician will do whatever he has to do, however you have it. You tell him the back 20, 30, 40, 50%.
I'd prefer that if we could get it where it would be automated, that's how I'd rather go. It leaves the human error out.
You have a problem with automation out by where you are? It'll be motion sensors, won't it, that would do the automation?
General.
That there's going to be deer out there and stuff. That's not going to fly. That's not going to work. Because the lights are going to be coming on and off based upon the animals coming through. I'm getting a lot of shaking heads in the back. And I think you got to rethink this a little bit. So far, you've testified as a lawyer about liability, and you've disclaimed any ability as an electrician. So I think you want to rethink this a little bit and go the way that we've gone in other places.
We'll work with the board professionals and kind of take a look at some of the other sites that it's been done and coordinated in.
We have no problem working with engineering in regard to modifying the lighting plan. In fact, I might have misstated earlier, because that was one of the, was one of the items we discussed, and I thought we were going to automate, but you bring up a very good point with animals and things walking through there that would trigger that. So we certainly will work with the engineering or the
Keep in mind
building.
that area is loaded with deer who turn those lights on all the time.
That was a good point. I didn't think that.
In terms of outside agencies, we're requiring approvals from Delaware Raritan Canal Commission, Somerset Union Soil Conservation District, and Somerset County Planning Board. We've already received our approvals from DRCC and Somerset Union Soil Conservation. Somerset County has provided us a letter that we are going to address shortly, mostly technical, small items and details in terms of the drainage, but nothing that we can't comply with. There is not going to be a dedication required for this particular property in the location that it is. The one item that your professionals might have not had time to review on the last submission was the replacement of the existing sign that is located along Elizabeth Avenue. It's approximately, I believe it was taken down when the ownership changed. It was approximately 3 feet by 3 feet. It actually said, had the name of the Love Nest Horse Farm on there. And what the applicant would like to do is just replace that 3 foot by 3 foot with the same size sign to kind of help identify this particular location, because the building is close to 200 feet from the street, along with a 70-watt floodlight on either side to kind of illuminate it. That's something that I don't know if Mr. Healy had a chance to review in the last submission, but that is something that was changed on the last submission.
As long as it meets the standards, the setback standards, the size is fine. As long as it meets the setback standards, I'm sure it's not any site triangle.
Was it 25 feet, I think?
Yeah, I think it's 25.
The issue is the existing sign, and this is why I'm bringing it up, the existing sign is actually located in the right-of-way.
Well, that would have to be moved.
So it needs to be shifted back to the
Yeah, I
minimum
mean,
25 setback.
I believe it's 25 feet. We could check, but you'd have to ask for that variance then, for that sign. Because if it's 25 feet,
Certainly couldn't permit it in the right-of-way if we wanted to.
Understood.
yeah.
We'll agree with, yes. We'll agree to meet the requirement. So-
Also recommend that sign, the lights associated with that sign be subject to the same regulations as the site lights.
Agree.
They go off an hour after the place is closed.
That's agreed. Thank you.
In conclusion, I think this is a great use of the site. It provides safe access to and from the facility and circulation around the building. And all in all, in terms of the soil environmental report that was submitted, it's a clean site, and it really makes sense for this particular use.
Is he addressing the sidewalk?
Yeah, so I was going to review the comments, go over the comments of the engineer, May 9th.
And what about the 30 foot,
About the 30 feet.
Yep.
who's going to address that?
You're going to comment on the 30 feet?
Yes. As I had mentioned, I was handed that report as I came into the building.
So were we.
My concern with the 30-foot access road is there are, counting on the plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 9, possibly 12 or 13 very mature trees that exist today on the driveway in, and provides a really nice cover canopy over that driveway. Expanding this an additional 4 feet, we are going to be required to eliminate at least one side and take those mature trees down, which I would really hate to see. I would prefer to work with Mr. House on some kind of median that we could kind of come together, possibly keeping it to 26 feet until we get past those mature trees, and then maybe expanding it open to 30 feet. But taking those mature trees, they really do provide a nice canopy over the entrance today, and we want to keep it that way in the future.
Can we leave it to them to work it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's typically what happens.
And we would also agree to upsize the line in from 6 inches to 8 inches as recommended.
Okay,
Did we talk about the sidewalk yet?
Talk about that right now.
I'm sorry.
The sidewalk? You don't want to put a
Oh, I-
sidewalk
No,
there?
no, no, what I wanted to, that was one of the comments, and I was going to try.
Oh, okay.
benefit of the board just-
You're in charge, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Just address the ones that you don't address the ones you can comply with, just address the ones that are issues.
Okay, okay. Well, Greg, you had an opportunity to review the May 9th comments from the township engineer, I'm guessing, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you please, number one was, we are requesting a waiver for the sidewalks along Elizabeth Avenue, and I believe you're familiar with the site and had an opportunity to look at the existing area?
That is correct. I literally drive past this site every single day at about 20 after 5, coming home from work. I live in Hillsborough. In the area, there are no sidewalks within this particular area, and we are requesting a waiver from that requirement. Something generally, in terms of sidewalk, is something that I would anticipate the county to ask for, but in their review, they didn't ask for it.
Well, here's the deal now, since I've been into a couple of meetings recently, and the town is doing the council is doing a lot of research on how much money they can save with the Board of Ed by eliminating bus routes and having kids walk to schools where it's appropriate. It's not unforeseeable sometime in the future that there could be enough sidewalks on Elizabeth Avenue to walk residents there to walk to the high school.
To the high school.
You're right, there's no sidewalk there now. But I'd be happy to see the money put aside that would go to a sidewalk, and if it doesn't happen there in the near future, it can be put to use somewhere else.
Could we put a time limit on that?
What's the,
Time limit on what?
In terms of the construction cost of the sidewalk, if it is not to be done in the next
Well,
X amount of years?
On a recent application, I think it was before the planning board, the dollar amount was based on the amount of construction for your, basically, what it would cost to put a sidewalk in right now.
Okay.
For your frontage. So whatever that cost would be, that would be a payment in lieu of you constructing the sidewalk.
Yeah, and whether it's constructed at your site or it may be constructed on some other site, either way, we're using the money, you're not having to put it, we're either going to do it at a later point in time, or we're going to do it someplace else that needs it.
So if they contributed the money at a later date, somebody else would then construct the sidewalk?
No, you have to contribute the money now.
Understood, but at a later, say 5 years from now, if you were to
Then it
construct
would be
that sidewalk,
someone
then
else.
somebody else would construct that.
Correct.
Yes.
right?
Correct, yeah, you're not being required to construct it. It all depends on whether maybe your site needs it now, or down the road from here, we have to put sidewalk.
Okay.
That way, you don't have to put it on your site. We're responsible for either that or someplace else.
Okay, you only pay once.
And if the town constructed that in the future, there would be no added assessment to the applicant, I'm guessing.
Correct.
You only pay once.
Right, yeah.
Pay
it's-
once,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know the cost of this and didn't discuss it with my, but would certainly work towards getting this resolved.
Yeah, well, it would be, either that or you'd have to construct it, so, I mean, I don't think you want to construct it, so whatever that cost would be,
Right.
it's the same as whether you construct it or.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Do it. That would be fine.
Yeah, township staff will figure out the cost of that.
Yeah, engineering will do that.
Okay.
Well, actually,
We'll do it.
Cost estimate, our engineer will review it.
Yes. I actually had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Houck this afternoon, and we are willing to comply with all other items, just a minor change to item 16 regarding bumper blocks in front of the handicap parking stalls. I made the request that I would prefer to just change the foundation of those handicap stalls from a typical U-post to a bollard that we've spec'd previously, and Carl said that would be acceptable. But all other items we would be willing to agree to.
Now, the architectural drawings here, Greg, I think we were going to just request the drawing.
Yes, I spoke to Carl about that. He's just looking for something to basically just show some dimensions of the existing single-family house, the room dimensions, how many bedrooms, that sort of thing.
So what we're saying is your engineer is requiring architectural drawings or layout of existing residential dwelling. We're saying we're going to give them a more or less of an informal drawing, just depicting the sizes of the rooms, and I think that was agreed to.
Correct.
Okay. And then there was just the right-of-way.
which is not required based on the county review.
And we had modified the plan, the county basically did not require a dedication, and the new plan, I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at the revised plan that reflects that there will, the 60-foot setback, front yard setback. Okay?
Okay. Any questions?
Are you going to, who's going to show the landscaping plan, the buffers?
We have the landscape architect.
Okay.
He's going to testify on the landscape plan.
Mr. Chairman, if I could suggest, why don't we have the landscape architect do that now, and then maybe we can have questions of both, 'cause
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
especially since that's the one variance that they're seeking. I think the questions are going to overlap.
Don't go far.
Before Greg steps down, I just wanted him to comment on the environmental report. I know there was some questions about that as well, so.
An environmental impact statement was submitted as part of this application. We have submitted and done a review on the site in terms of any wetlands located on site. We have obtained a letter of interpretation from the DEP stating that there are no wetlands located on site. The site has no history or any kind of identification of any T&E on the property, and I believe a Phase 1 was also performed for the property. So based on that report and analysis, that the property should be used and can be used for this particular use.
It would be fair to say that the impact from this, constructing this project would be minimal?
Correct.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
and just T&E means there's no threatened or
Threatened
endangered
endangered
species.
species.
And the Phase 1 talks about whether there's any potential for
Contaminants.
contamination on the site. And
Correct.
It was all negative.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call our landscape architect, please, Chris Gammons. Hey, Chris, can you please state your name for the benefit of the board, please?
Christopher Gammons, Gammons.
Sir, raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Chris, can you please state for the benefit of the board your expertise as a landscape architect and your professional experience, please?
Graduate of Rutgers University, 2002. I've been practicing landscape design and landscape architecture for the past 10 years. I was licensed in 2011 as a licensed landscape architect and recognized by the CLARB, the Council of Landscape Architecture Registration Boards.
Thank you. Chris, you're familiar with the zoning law in the master plan, right?
Correct.
And you had an opportunity to personally inspect the site?
Yes.
And you are aware of the requirements? Basically, if we were to comply with this particular requirements for the buffering under the conditional use of this, for this project?
Correct.
Okay. Maybe as a starting point, I know that you had both diagrams. Did you want to refer to the conforming as opposed to our plan?
We could start with the conforming.
Okay. If you may, we're just
Sure.
Oops, I'm sorry. We moved them.
I'll mark this in as Exhibit A2.
Just for a purpose of demonstration, can you tell me what, well, basically, I guess this plan depicts the site as it would be if we were to conform with the existing buffering requirements. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you just explain for the benefit of the audience what exactly would have to be done to this site to conform?
As part of the conditional use for churches and houses of worship in Franklin Township, there's a requirement, K1 and K2 of the ordinance, where you're required a 15-foot wide buffer with evergreens spaced 10 feet maximum on center. These evergreens need to be 8 to 10 feet with a 6-foot board-on-board fence for the 15-foot buffer, or a triple row spaced 10 feet on center maximum without the fence. And the existing site itself which has been discussed before, is primarily a wooded, mature growth site with a lot of trees that range anywhere from 50 to 100 years old, depending on the trees that are there. We have, what we're showing here is a complying plan, which if we did this plan, we wouldn't be here in front of this board today. But we are asking for the relief from that because we found it inappropriate to plant out a buffer of this scale, which would require taking down these mature trees that wrap the site as it currently exists today. So in our proposal for our plan today, we are looking to supplement the buffer instead of clear-cutting what's an asset to the residents around the site as it currently exists by supplementing the understory with shade-tolerant evergreens that will help complement the existing trees that exist.
So in an effort to preserve the existing woodland, you devised another landscape plan?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I think if there's no questions with this plan, we can move right on to our proposed plan.
Yeah, and to be fair to the applicant came in to us months ago and showed us this plan, and because both boards have consistently said they do not want to tear down mature forests, we recommended that they come up with a different plan and come to this board instead of the planning board, because both boards have felt that we don't want to rip down mature trees, just supplement it. So we actually made that recommendation to them.
Typically, in Franklin Township, I think this ordinance is written to protect residents who, there's a lot of farm areas throughout the community. And where you have a site that's completely open and that's void of any trees, this type of buffer makes sense. It works to protect the residents, whereas on this particular site, because of the existing trees that are there, it's more of an asset to keep those trees. I mean, you're cutting down trees that are anywhere from 60 to 100 feet tall that provide great shade, and a great buffer with the addition of the understory, which we'd be adding.
Thank you. Could we move to our plan?
Sure. I'll mark this in as Exhibit A3. This is overall plan exhibit dated 5/16. This is a plan that's showing the proposed site over top of an existing aerial that was shot in 2012. We are proposing to buffer with the same requirement that's requested in part of K1 with a double row of evergreens, spaced 10 feet on center maximum, with a mixture of deciduous and evergreen shrubs spaced throughout. The idea of this would be to buffer the areas that would be directly up against the residential that did not have the same type of existing trees present in those areas, and then supplement other areas where we felt there might be some voids in the canopy to really provide a decent buffer for the adjacent residences. What we also have is a preserved open space that wraps around the site that's currently owned, I believe, by Franklin Township. It was a railway that is now, I believe, been dedicated and now owned by the township, and that's an additional buffer on top of what we're proposing with the additional evergreens that we would be adding and shrubs. That is also additional layer of protection that will never be taken away from the adjacent residences.
Can you just point out, because I don't think the board or the public was presented the kind of the site layout, just very quickly, where the building is, the worship building.
Okay.
And what the white stuff is around it and behind it.
Yes, this is
And
not
then
the building that we're.
And then how the buffering relates to.
Correct.
That's basically the activity area of the site and how the buffering relates to that.
Yes. Okay. So we have our curb cut entrance off Elizabeth Avenue. Maybe I'll stand over here. So off of Elizabeth Avenue here, with a driveway that enters the site. The lighter gray that you see is our parking field. The shaded back gray is what we were calling the land bank parking. And what you have here in the lighter manila color, I would guess you would call it, would be what we're converting the existing shed or warehouse into the house of worship here. Up towards the front of the site where you see this small gray area here, this is the existing residential house that they would be maintaining. And in the middle of the two buildings is where you would have your septic area there, which would require the removal of a few trees in that area.
So then, the areas that are in the dark green, you have a little area in the bottom corner, the right corner, that's where you're proposing a double staggered row of evergreens, because there's a gap there?
Correct. In these areas where we're showing the green, it's basically a double row. If you came up closer, I know it's harder to see from where some people are standing right now, but this is a double row staggered of evergreens, in this area up on the top of the site, on the northern portion of the site, on the southern portion of the site, basically in this area here, and then it stops, and then we continue it in the parking area. If you notice, you can see there's existing trees here, as you see through the aerial, that are pretty tall here, but where we were able to get up close to the property line and meet what the ordinance wants, which is a buffer along the property line, that's where we added our additional buffering here. And what we tried to do is, instead of taking down any of the trees to accommodate the ordinance standards, we left what was existing there.
And all of those trees that are shown in the dark green, those are 8 to 10 foot high evergreen trees?
I have our planting.
8 to 10 or 7 to 8?
Let me just, before
I think it might be 7 to 8, actually, per the ordinance.
We have 6 to 8 bald and burlapped spruce trees, pine trees, Douglas fir, and 5 to 6 arborvitaes.
Okay.
So 6 to 8, which would have met the ordinance requirement.
Okay. And then can you show where there's a stockade fence proposed on both sides, the north and the south? Can you show where where those fences are proposed?
The stockade fence, and again, let me just pull up because it's a little bit harder to see on the exhibit there. Stockade fence. Our stockade fence starts in the opening in the existing trees here and follows all the way to the end of the buffer there.
Okay, and there's one on the north side as well?
Yes, correct. We have on the north side, we have, starting at this point here, we have a stockade fence continuing to the end of the evergreen buffer there.
Okay.
Why does it stop? It seems to me that the property goes further than where that greens and the stockade fence stops. And also, I'm sure that the houses go further than that. Why does it stop there?
Why does the buffer stop?
Yeah, that's not the end of the property, is it?
No, it's not the rear of the property, but the existing residence is up towards the front here. And you have an existing residence that's down here. So we felt that where we were adding the buffer to, your view sheds that you're going to be able to see where this would affect any of the views of the adjacent residential properties would be buffered significantly with these.
And then the rear of the site as well is vegetated. So can you point out to the board where it's vegetated on the site?
Correct.
You can
Yes.
see it here.
This is an open field meadow area where I believe the horses that were stabled here would graze. The edge of the wooded line is following this darker green area that you see in here, where you can see some of the black underneath, which is the trees from the aerial. You see the shadows of them. But so across the entire back of the property, it's wooded with significant trees in those areas.
I think you could also see the forest better on the other plan right there. I think that's easier to see the existing forest line, tree line.
So you have your tree line here that wraps around the side. And I mean, those areas are existing oaks, maples, you have hickory. These are old trees. These are not successional trees that are just started. They're not weak-wooded trees. These are trees that are 50 to 75 years old. They're anywhere from 60 to 100 feet tall. It's an asset to have for anybody in the community to keep those and to not cut down, the borders to put a buffer in of something that's only going to be 6 to 8 feet. That's going to take 25, 30 years to really ever establish something that's going to be anywhere near as significant of what's currently on site today.
Now, it may not be a question to you, but when I look at this site, so, on there, I mean, it's.
Speak louder.
Speak louder, right in the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's a huge site. So this site is only going to have the residential house, the barn that exists in there, and a parking lot. And so more than half the site is going to be left empty for good?
I'm sorry, you said left empty for what?
For forever? You're not going to
No, I
want to
mean,
put
I
anything else on?
certainly couldn't say it would be, left vacant forever, but at least initially in our plan, it's supposed to remain as is. Okay, undisturbed, in other words, we're trying to preserve as much of the woodland as possible.
All right.
Like, no,
It
Mr.
just
Dominic.
seems like a very large empty lot there. Yeah.
And certainly it is. The lot itself, I think, is nearly 6 acres, but I think the disturbed area is only maybe 2+ acres on the site.
And I believe those areas that, that we're speaking about in the back, if mowed, on a biannual basis and as a meadow, I mean, it's an asset for people who are worshiping on the site. It's a serene, backdrop to, what people are going to be seeing, what they're coming to. I mean, it's being one with nature, being peaceful people. I mean, I think that's part of what, they're trying to, propose here. And I think that's, having something like that in a place like that, you don't find too many places around here where you do have that kind of open space, so.
Now, I'm not quite sure what the north and south of this whole thing is, but we've got.
North.
North is, okay, so put your finger right on the south edge of the property. Good, okay, then we're going to speak the same language.
Sure.
Immediately south of there is an open space right there?
There is what used to be a rail line.
Yeah.
I believe 65 feet wide, 65-foot wide rail line that you
Right.
can run through here, and also another area back here. It's 40 acres of.
It's about 75. Per the township tax map, it's about 75 acres and it extends all the way out to Emerald.
Okay, on the backside, on what we would call the east side there. But because I'm looking at this, at my maps here, and on the tax map, there's a lot of different lots to the south here, and I guess you
have 1, 2, 3 lots along the southerly line. You have lot 1.02, 2.01, and lot 3.
I got 1.02, 2.01, and then, I can't even read what the next two are. But, but do those properties face onto Weston Road? What road do those properties face onto?
That's Amwell Road.
Amwell, okay, all right. Okay. So the rest of the property on that southern side, that's all, except where you got that little bit of green there, that's all heavy vegetation, big trees?
Very large trees, correct.
All right, okay. Are they deciduous or conifers?
The majority of them are deciduous trees.
Okay.
And that's where we are, adding the additional buffering in the areas where you're going to have view sheds from the rears of those properties, although they have significant growth. Now, they do have some lawn spaces as you move, forward out of the view here, but the majority of it's wooded from, the back of the site, but where they're going to have view sheds that are going to be affected by what we're adding here, that's where we've added our buffer that complies with the ordinance standards.
Yep. Now, what made the trees that you're going to be planting are white pine, spruce, and what are the other two?
It was arborvitae and I believe hollies. Douglas fir, white pine, Norway spruce, and western arborvitae.
Okay, what made you choose arborvitae?
It's not the arborvitae that you typically think.
It's not that the ones that the deer eat, it's something
It's
else?
not the green gem arborvitae. The majority of the materials that we have used on site are typical of native materials throughout New Jersey. We are aware of the deer problems throughout this area. The arborvitae that we specify is a western arborvitae, which is, I think you're referring to what's called the green gem or
The yummy
green giant.
arborvitae, right.
Yes, yes. There are different types of arborvitaes, also the giant arborvitae, which tend to be, nothing is necessarily deer resistant. I can't testify to something being completely deer resistant because in different areas they'll eat something, but typically of what we know works in this area, that's what we'd be planting. As well as with the shrubs and the other evergreen, the deciduous and evergreen shrubs, the materials were to be deer tolerant, I would say.
I feel obligated to say this, because if we were before the planning board, I'd be obligated to say if you could replace the white pine with something different, because they tend to grow up, and then you can kind of see under them as they grow.
I think we could work with the planning board and the officials, township officials, to come up with a plan that would satisfy your recommendations.
You're a landscape architect, I'm sure you'll come up with it.
Absolutely.
Thank
He
you.
would be the township official, so.
Correct. I could work with you to figure something out. American hollies will also work well here. They won't have a deer problem. They can also work well with the shade, and they will stay thicker and shorter.
Okay, the bamboo on the north side there, is that on your property or?
No.
That's, okay, that's on.
There's a fence line that runs, what you see here along the northern portion of the property. It is basically, bordering all along our property there.
So you won't be touching the bamboo?
No.
Okay.
Make a difference if you touch it.
Okay, anything?
It may be on our site soon.
I guess, Chris, would you say that the proposed plan would minimize any detriment to the neighbors as best we can, and also preserving the existing woodland?
That was
Because it
the
is-
idea of proposing this plan versus the, Exhibit A2, which you saw originally, is that we were trying to come up with a happy medium that would kind of work for both. Obviously, we want to meet the intentions of the ordinance, while at the same time protecting the residents around by, adding and supplementing throughout, these trees that are, as I said, mature trees that are almost irreplaceable at the point to take some of them down just to put up a 6 to 8 foot tree. So I believe that we do.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? Then we'll open to the public. Wait a minute, I guess you're finished, right? I kind of.
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr.
We had two witnesses, the architect and the engineer, landscape architect and the engineer. So if you have any questions specifically for them regarding their testimony, again, give us your name again. And you're already sworn, you weren't sworn in, but that's okay. You're asking questions.
As I said, I'm the immediate neighbor, but I don't know how soon or how long ago have you passed through the property? Because, let me point out something here.
If you're going to talk, you're going to have to take, sir, if you're going to talk, you're going to have to take the mic with you.
Take the mic, you can pull the mic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
First time over here, that's why. What I'm gonna say is this one, around this point here, all the mature trees that you're talking are gone. Sandy took it off. So it's all gone, so they just cut it off. All right? Now, the next question for you is this. Are you gonna maintain the fencing?
I would believe it would be normal property maintenance and in the interest of the client to maintain what would be our fence.
Because right now-
What would be on our property, what's not on our property, I don't believe we'd maintain.
That belongs to the property. My point is this. The fence right now is kind of run down already. The cows and the horses had kicked all those things, and so they're gone, basically. And instead of those, what do you call, the wooden stockade thing there, they're using bamboos, just to show, put it in the slot, kind of.
I don't believe they're having horses out here anymore,
Not
so I don't
anymore.
think they have the need for the fencing in those areas. The new fencing that we would be proposing, obviously, we'd be maintaining those
Yeah.
areas, but I can't speak to what the maintenance would be on the surrounding fences, or whether they would even remain at that point, because there'd be no longer use for the horses there.
That's what I'm saying. That-
Excuse me, Chris, can you just point out where the board-on-board fence is that we're installing? Maybe that will be helpful.
The board-on-board fence starts in this area here, in front of the existing house here, and continues to the end of the buffered area here. And then you have another one that starts at the opening of the trees here, because these were larger trees, and if we didn't want to add under, we still wanted to give a buffer, so we have a 6-foot board-on-board fence that starts at the beginning of this buffer, that follows all the way into to the end of our parking area here.
What's the length from this point up to this point?
The overall length is 910 feet, so I think the area that you were pointing at is roughly 400 feet.
400? Okay.
He's got a... Where did you point to? Where do you want the measurement?
No, where you're planting those buffer trees?
The buffer trees. Give or take 440 to 450 feet.
So it will be like basically half of the property,
That's what I was going to say, everything turns out.
because,
Approximately, yes.
okay. Now, the thing there actually is, your mature trees actually is a little bit over here only. And then, because my trees over here is more mature than the other ones that they have. And that's why mine is covered all over. And that's why, as I said, just to point out for correction, as I said, these are gone right now. If you want, you can take a look tomorrow or even tonight, and you will see.
I think there was significant storm damage done all across the state, and if there is an instance where we are missing trees in a certain area, that has been since the last time we were out there. I was out there a few weeks ago, but since the last time we were out there, or we've passed the site, if there are major holes or gaps in the canopies, I think we'd be willing to accommodate and maybe add some additional trees into those areas to buffer for that.
Excuse me, Chris, if I might, I believe in the pre-meeting, pre-application meeting, we indicated that we would have 12 or 15 additional trees available to fill in some of these areas.
Absolutely. I think
If
as
more
part
native
of the
will do
development of
that.
the property, as he stated, about 12 to 15 trees that we would work with the township officials on site to specifically put in any gaps that may be apparent at the time of planting, to help, buffer additional views if there is a tree that was missing at that point.
Well, actually, if I could speak to that, in a way, you've already agreed to do it, because it's in my report. The existing vegetation along the southerly property line is not as thick as it might appear from the survey, and I put perhaps from storm damage. Thus, the applicant should add evergreen trees where possible between the existing tree line and the worship building. So that's the exact area we're talking about.
Okay.
So I think what you're indicating, that number of trees
Yes.
is what I
Which
think
is not a problem. I believe when we had a discussion, 12 to 15 sticks in my mind, but if it's a few more,
I'm not even
less,
sure
it's
that
not-
many will fit, but I.
Yeah, whatever.
We'll work with you to make sure that those areas are taken care of.
I have another question to be directed to the gentleman over here. Yeah. My question is this. You'll be putting those, what do you call this, parking on the north side?
The land bank parking?
Yeah. Then how's the sloping will be done? Sloping will be towards the north and south?
No, the plans that were submitted included that land banked area of 27 parking stalls. The plans submitted show that to be graded, drains to an inlet, and is piped to the infiltration basin.
My question is, how are you going, where is the slope going then? They'll be on the north or on the south side?
The slope is going to follow exactly how it goes today, and it is actually going to slope right towards the infiltration basin,
Where is the infiltration basin?
at the northwest corner of the property.
Where at? This area here. Northwest?
Northwest corner of the property, correct.
Toward your house.
But
The
there's,
reason I'm asking is this. The impact on the thing there will be on my basement. If the slope is towards on the north side, there will be some problem, there might be some problem on my basement. And it will be very costly on my part.
In terms of the drainage, the land banked area is not going to be graded. Therefore, any drainage that is currently going to your property from that area is going to continue in the proposed conditions. If and when that parking area is required by the town or the applicant, it will be curbed, paved, and all that runoff will be collected and handled and conveyed to the infiltration basin.
When you mention about the runoff basin, how big will be the basin then?
The basin itself?
Yes.
That scale?
It's freaking.
It's huge. Do it off the.
The basin width is approximately 45 to 50 feet by a length of approximately 180.
Against the boundary?
Against the boundary, no.
How far?
The top of berm is 25 feet from the property.
20 feet or 25 feet?
25 feet from the property line, the top, the very top of the basin.
As I said, my concern is the impact it will give on my basement.
Understood. We are actually reducing the amount of flow that is going toward the north and piping that and handling that in that basin, which is then tied into the collection system, which heads down towards Amwell.
Okay.
So there is an actual reduction of flow.
Yeah, all right. As I said, that's my concern. That's the reason why I'm raising the question. Okay, thank you.
Next. Okay.
My name is Eric Stone. I'm at 2045 Amwell Road. I'm the second house in from the corner, facing the property, and as I see it, we're going to be heavily impacted by this. So I've lived there for close to 20 years, and we talked about serene. Well, serene means looking out my bedroom windows and seeing trees, and, well, it used to be horses, and we can see in the wintertime the full property of the Love Nest Farm from our windows. So if you have an 8-foot to 10-foot buffer and 14-foot lights, your buffer's useless, because in the wintertime, there are no leaves. So we can see everything. And every single car that pulls in facing our house, wintertime, we're going to see every last one of them. And guess what? They're going to be looking right in our back windows.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, well, my question is, how does your buffer address these issues? We can start there.
I could address the light from the cars.
Sure, thanks.
The parking lot is actually laid out in a way where the parking is from an east-west or west-east direction.
The cars don't turn through the lot?
They will turn through the lot.
So
Okay.
it will now create a flashing effect.
Okay. Well, the buffer at that elevation is basically at the same elevation as the parking lot, assuming headlights are approximately 2.5 to 3 feet high, with a 6 to 8 foot high buffer. As planted, they will grow. Those lights will be shielded. In terms of cars parked, none of the cars are going to be parked directly at your car. They're 90 degrees from your house.
There's also a 6-foot-high stockade fence.
That is correct.
Okay. The lights that used to pull in, we could see them, from Love Nest. We could see them. So I know from 20 years' experience what we can and can't see. So I'm pretty much anticipating that during the dark hours, that's all going to be visible. You guys don't talk about traffic, right? So
That's coming up.
Coming up.
Coming up, right. So I'll save that for later. That was really it. Thank you.
And where again did you live?
2045, I'm the second house in from the corner. Yep.
Can you show maybe on that lower exhibit, so the board?
So you're saying even through all those trees there, you can still see what's going on?
You're actually on Amwell Road, right?
Yes,
Correct.
sir.
These trees, the canopies of these trees are up 20 to 30 feet, so I understand where the gentleman's coming from, that, in the winter when the leaves do drop, and the understory kind of falls away, that you can see through, but as Greg had mentioned, what we are proposing here is going to be 6 to 8 foot evergreens on top of a 6 foot board-on-board fence, which these trees will eventually get, they grow about, on average, about 1 foot to 1.5 foot per year. So you comfortably, within the first 5 years, you should have something that's about 15 feet tall. That's not going to be deciduous. These are going to be evergreen, pretty densely.
No problem, no problem. We wait our 5 years and then the problem's solved. Thank you very much.
Okay, so,
Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, we'll close for this portion. Next witness?
yeah, I guess it's just,
Probably like to call our traffic study expert, Scott Kennel, please.
Sir, if you raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates, located at 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan. As the board may recall, I testified here approximately a month ago on the WILF application.
Did you lose your license?
I'm not licensed, I'm qualified as a traffic expert.
Okay. Go on.
Please, the board, set forth your professional background and experience.
Use the mic, use the mic.
Come on, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
I apologize. Okay, if it please the board, could you set forth your...
It's okay.
Yeah,
He's all right.
he was
Thank
just
you.
here last month.
That's good, that's good.
Thank you. Yes, our firm submitted a traffic impact study to the board, and it's dated November 5, 2012. And with that traffic study, the first phase included inventory of existing conditions, existing roadway conditions, and an extensive data collection program, which included the installation of automatic traffic recording devices on Elizabeth Avenue from Saturday, October 6th to Saturday, October 13th. And in addition, manual turning movement counts were conducted at the intersection of Amwell Road and Elizabeth Avenue during the evening peak hour. That was on October 11th, and then on Saturday from 11 to 2 p.m. on October 6th. Generally speaking, the 24-hour volumes on a weekday basis along Elizabeth Avenue is approximately 7,200 vehicles. Saturday, it's slightly lower, around 5,000 vehicles. The peak hour volume right along the site frontage during the weekday PM period is approximately 900 vehicles two-way, and on Saturday, it's in the range of 300 to 400 vehicles. The next step was to determine how much traffic be generated by the proposed house of worship. We consulted the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual and utilized the Land Use Code 560 for a church that as best resembles the intended use, and determined that during the peak hours, based on the size of the building, it would generate 24 trips during a 60-minute period, which is generally consistent with the testimony earlier, and more so for the weekend activities. As far as the weekday, the trip generation would be on a lower level, as was testified earlier. But to be a worst-case scenario, we considered 24 trips during the PM peak hour as well in our analysis. To assess the future traffic conditions, let me just, as far as the intersection of Amwell Road and Elizabeth Avenue, it's currently operating at a C-level service for the PM peak hour and a B-level service for the Saturday peak hour.
And is that coming out of Elizabeth, or is that along Amwell?
That is the overall intersection level of service.
Okay, all right.
So that, what that
It's not really either direction, it's just the overall view of the thing.
Correct, but I can give you each approach if that was...
That's okay, that's good. The fact
Okay.
that you were honest enough to call it a C makes me feel pretty good.
Okay.
Just for the people in the audience, would you tell them what a C and a B
Yes.
is? It doesn't mean that it's an A, B, C like in school.
Correct. In order to establish the quality of traffic flow, we rate an intersection from an A to an F. and it's based on average vehicle delay over a 60-minute period for all the vehicles. And for a signalized intersection, the design standards is C to D level service, which a D goes to 55 seconds. What we recorded out here was a delay of 27 seconds during the evening peak hour, and on Saturday, 17 seconds. So we're well below the acceptable thresholds that you design a signalized intersection for.
What's the threshold for a signalized intersection?
Well, typically, the design threshold is a D-level service, and it's currently operating at a C-level service.
Okay.
So we're well within the accepted range. The next phase...
This means people are going to wait at a stoplight. That's what it's for.
You're going to wait, and as I indicated, the average delay is 27 seconds. Some people wait a little bit more, some wait less, depending on which approach they're on and when they arrive at the intersection, at the beginning of the red interval, at the end of the red interval. And that's all taken into consideration. Once we established the trip estimates, it was necessary to evaluate the impacts of this development when it's constructed and fully occupied. And we took into consideration traffic growth data that was published by the New Jersey Department of Transportation and added for Elizabeth Avenue and Amwell Road, the DOT data indicates that the growth is approximately 2.25% per year. That was surcharged onto the base traffic volumes. And then the site trips were also surcharged onto Elizabeth Avenue as well as the intersection of Amwell Road and Elizabeth. As far as the intersection of Elizabeth Avenue and Amwell's in post-development conditions, it'll continue to operate a level service C during the PM peak period, the weekday PM, and on Saturday continue to operate a level service B. Very little de minimis impact on that intersection. As far as the site driveway, in analyzing that location on Elizabeth Avenue, the left turn movement into the site will operate a level service A during both the PM and Saturday peak hours. And as far as traffic exiting the site, it's projected to operate a level service B. Maximum delay is approximately 14 seconds per vehicle. So again, well below the standards that we try to achieve for intersections as well as driveways. As far as the site plan is concerned, as Mr. Oman had testified, there are currently 2 driveways servicing the property. We're consolidating to provide only 1 driveway, so you minimize the number of conflict points onto Elizabeth Avenue. The location of the driveway provides great sight lines. For a 35-mile-an-hour roadway, it's recommended to have a sight distance of 450 feet. The sight distance out there are in excess of 500 feet, so we meet the standard as far as available sight distance so that the driveway operates in a safe and efficient manner. As far as the site plan itself, I've done a review as far as on-site circulation, and it provides, the design provides a positive on-site circulation for passenger vehicles as well as refuse vehicles that will be serving the site. And as far as the parking is concerned, as Mr. Oman testified, the 42 parking spaces will be more than adequate to accommodate the projected demand based on the weekday and weekend schedule. Even if you consider that the vehicle occupancy was 2 people per vehicle, and you had 75 to 80 people, you would need anywhere from approximately 38 parking spaces. But as was testified, that is not intended to be the case here, so that there's more than adequate parking. And I would also agree with the recommendation to bank the 27 spaces that were detailed on the plan.
Now, did your calculations, though, and I'm sorry, I'm zoned out for a minute there. Did your calculations as to the level of impact, did they assume that the bank spaces were operational, or did they just sort of treated them as something that was banked?
Well, again, the trip generation data or calculations are based on the size of the building. I think it's consistent with the testimony earlier that based on the size of the building or size of even the worship area, that you would not have the need for 68 parking spaces. But should that happen, and even if I doubled the traffic generation during peak hours, we'd still achieve the B-level service.
Okay.
And also, are you assuming by your report that the bulk of the traffic is going to use Amwell and Elizabeth, that intersection?
What we assumed was that there would be, bear with me. We assumed a 50% distribution northbound and southbound because, again, Elizabeth Avenue takes you up to the 287 corridor. Also, as other municipal streets, collector roadways, New Brunswick and other streets. So based on the roadway network and the traffic patterns, we assumed 50% to the north and 50% to the south towards Amwell.
And then, okay, then I'm assuming that you're saying the intersection at Weston Road and Elizabeth Avenue will continue to function basically as it does now.
That's correct, because at the maximum we'll be adding 12 additional vehicles over a 60-minute period.
Did you consider the high school hours at all?
The high school hours, during the morning peak hours, I mean, I have
With school buses? and
ATR,
everything?
well,
You know, with school buses?
again, during the morning peak hour, volumes are lower on Elizabeth Avenue than they are the evening. The evening peak hour is the critical peak hour, and to the time the services will be taking place here, there will be, most of the school buses in schools ended, so there will be a minimal amount of school buses. But any school buses that were on Amwell Road or Elizabeth Avenue were recorded in our traffic counts.
And the high school begins the school day at 7:30, which seems to fall outside of the hours of worship that are in the morning anyway.
That's true as well.
Just a question on the left turn off of Elizabeth into the site. There's a shoulder. Can the cars pass on the shoulder? Is it wide enough?
Trying to recall, it's my recollection is, depends if the person is turning left is adjacent to the double yellow. Again, it all depends on where that left turner, but given, again, in the evening peak hour, the northbound direction is the lower movement. It's the more heavier flow is in the southbound direction. So therefore, anybody looking to turn left into the site, I know I've done it a few times during the PM peak hour, it's usually very easy to make, and you wouldn't have to wait on Elizabeth Avenue.
Any other questions? Finish?
Just one question. In conclusion, Scott, would it be fair to say...
Use the mic, use the mic.
Mike?
I apologize, I'm sorry. Would it be fair to say that the house of worship we propose along Elizabeth Avenue can be occupied without having an adverse or detrimental impact on the traffic conditions in the area?
That is the case. And as stated on page 12 of our traffic impact study, it's concluded that, again, this development would not have a detrimental impact on traffic conditions in the area. The proposed use will not generate significant increase in traffic, and there is adequate roadway capacity to accommodate the site-generated traffic. And furthermore, there's adequate parking and positive on-site circulation with the plan prepared by Menlo Engineering.
Thank you. Other questions?
All right, in terms of opening to the public, is there anyone who wants a chance at the traffic safety expert? Come on up to the mic and identify yourself.
Eric Stone, 2045 Amwell Road. So if we talked about having up to 40 cars for any given large event, especially on a weekend, what happens when they all show up at the same time and all leave at the same time? Isn't that going to cause some significant disruption on Elizabeth Avenue and potentially at the traffic light?
Well, first of all, based on the testimony earlier, there are approximately 25 families that would be served by this house of worship.
We're talking about maximums.
And if there was 40 on a Saturday, I do not see an issue with that. As I testified earlier, the traffic volumes on Elizabeth Avenue on a Saturday peak hour are approximately 40% of what's observed during the weekday evening peak hours, in the range of 300 to 400 vehicles. There's more than adequate capacity to even if there were 40 vehicles on the site, and if they left that within a 1-hour period, it's my opinion we still would have a B-level service.
So that wouldn't cause any potential hazards for, say, as all the light changes down at Van Cleef, and you got 8 to 10 cars that are coming down, and most of them are making a right turn on Elizabeth. They all kind of stack up on a regular basis. Now you've got 30 or 40 cars coming out onto Elizabeth at the same time, and of course, those bursts are, 30 to 45 seconds apart.
Well, that's, again, assuming everybody leaves at the same time, but also recall that not all the traffic is oriented to Amwell Road. Approximately 50% of the traffic will be oriented to the north. So again, that's a distribution of the traffic, and again, this is over a certain period of time. Based on the low volumes of traffic during the Saturday periods, I do not see where this will have a detrimental impact on the area roadway system.
Okay, you're making an assumption. Has anybody ever, just looked at any synagogue or church when service is let out? I mean, common sense. Lots of cars all leave at the same time. So let's say half of them make a right and half of them make a left. So you got 20 cars in 5 or 10 minutes trying to make a left turn onto Emil Road, and they stack up at that light.
Well, let me give you an example. On Saturday, there are 132 left turns. On a weekday PM, there are 435. And that intersection still works very well during the PM peak hour. So to add 20 vehicles to Saturday's 132, it's still going to function much better than it does on the weekday PM. So again, that's where I go with my statement earlier that this development would not have a detrimental impact on the area roadway system.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to ask questions? Okay, we'll close this portion of the public. Next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call our architect, Panjai Jani, please.
I need you to use the microphone.
Mr. Jani, could you please state your name for the record, please?
My name is Pankaj Jani.
Put it up to your lips.
Like a rock star, my friend, right close to your lips.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Pankaj Jani. Last name is Jani, Jani, and I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey since 1980.
Okay, sir, do you solemnly swear? Raise your right hand. Or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Jani, if it please the board, would you please set forth your qualifications for the record, please?
I'm an architect in the state of New Jersey since 1980, and I work from 24 Rolex Circle in Edison, New Jersey.
Okay, I don't think we've seen you before, so
No.
you have to
I
listen
came
to
here
a little
a long
bit.
time ago.
Okay, that's
80s.
fine. You're licensed. You're here. Move forward.
Okay, in preparation, I guess, of not only the meeting, but in preparing the plans for the building, submitted a copy of the floor plan and elevations of the building?
Yeah, I
Okay,
submitted already.
Can you please explain the floor plan first for the benefit of the board and audience, please?
On the floor plan is the existing one-story building, existing steel structure.
Can you speak louder?
It's an existing steel structure building, one-story building. And we are not changing anything interior. The building will remain the same. Just we are changing the facade from the outside, so it beautify the buildings. We are not doing anything structurally or changing or addition to the building, nothing. We are not doing anything. Existing building will remain the same.
Okay.
You are installing new doors, is that?
Yeah, new doors and new windows.
And new windows?
Because these are existing steel windows and they are in bad shape, so we are changing the windows and doors and everything there.
And are you removing the existing steel siding?
Steel sidings and providing the new sidings, stucco finishes.
And is this an accurate, I guess, example of what you're going to be?
Pardon.
Would anyone like to see?
Yeah.
Thank you. In regard to the interior, the plan indicates that approximately 1,000 square feet is for
About
worship?
1,020 square feet, worship space, yeah.
Okay. And then the priest will occupy the remaining portion?
Portion of small temples and
Okay.
remaining portion. And on the left-hand side, there are men's and women's toilet facilities are there.
So there's provisions for toilets and facilities, huh? Okay. Is the roof at all going to be changed?
No, everything will remain the same, only the facade.
No, okay.
And we are going to insulate the roof from inside, so, and from the inside, the roof will be insulated for the, according to the energy code.
Earlier, you showed me depiction, I guess, of the exterior elevation.
Rendering of the
Do
exterior.
you have those copies so we can give them to the board members as well? We can,
I got one. Yeah.
maybe we can refer these, I guess, collectively to or either A4? These doors are going to be replaced with wooden doors, right?
Yeah.
And thermopane windows?
Yeah, window, yeah. Thermopane, yes, sir.
Pretty ordinary.
We can share.
It's all good.
They look the same to me. Oh, yeah, the ours are the same.
This is the Marriage of the Avenue, and one from the back and one from the back. Oh, that's the back. That's the back end, yeah.
Yeah, it's looking from here, so you see this.
Okay, so I'll mark one of them A4 and the other one A5, okay? The one from the back will be A5.
That's fine, thank you.
Pretty ordinary.
It's from the back. A5.
Quick question on these renderings. It's showing these, are there actually little wall wash lights, or is that just kind of an artistic? Almost looks like there's little wall wash lights underneath the roof
No,
line.
this is artistic, yeah.
That's just a artistic
Artistic, yeah.
flourish or whatever, okay.
There are, yeah, small cone lights on the wall, on the top, yeah. You can see.
And of course, the handicap lights will be in blue, not white, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
This is just, I'm very observant.
Purely an artistic rendering.
artistic and.
Resolution. Oh, resolution.
And there's also, I guess, the applicant's intention to replace the windows with thermopane windows and the doors, the steel doors with wood doors?
Wooden doors, yeah.
As-
Steel doors with the wooden doors.
That's it?
Basically, I think, Mr. Chairman, the outside, what they're going to, my understanding is that the steel is going to be removed and it's going to be replaced with wood sheathing and then the stucco over
stucco.
top. The windows, of course, are going to be replaced and the doors are going to be replaced with wooden doors on here. The steel roof is going to remain intact.
Okay.
And then the interior, the build-out is going to basically be in accord with the floor plan that we submitted. And that, I believe the floor plan to be accurate.
Kind of a little confused. I see what it is.
Any questions?
Well, yeah, I've got a question. It looks like,
This is the back, that's the front.
but it looks, the way that this parking lot is done, it doesn't look to me like it's possible for the parking lot and the picture to match up, because we see one side on one picture. Oh, I guess it does work.
What I would suggest is the site layout, the parking lot layout, that's what's on the site plan. I think what this is intended to do is just give you a sense of the character of the building, the appearance of the building. I wouldn't worry about the layout.
More of a Zen picture.
Yeah, even the landscaping, for example, I think that's just to pretty it up.
It's all
I'd
good.
concentrate on how the building looks.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Okay, there's going to be a men's and women's restroom?
Oh, yeah, two
And-
restrooms, yeah.
And there's going to be a kitchen?
Handicap.
Are you going to
No,
have a-
there is no kitchen.
No kitchen?
No kitchen facilities, no.
No stove, no?
No storage, no kitchen facilities.
It's not going to serve any refreshments, huh?
No, no.
Oh.
That's right.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Anything from you?
No other questions, thank you.
Okay, we'll open to the public.
I just have one question. Did you design the lighting for the parking lot?
No, no. I didn't need lighting.
Who did that? The engineer?
Engineer.
Are they going to be downward focused lights, like boxed kind of lights? What's the candle power generally, 10?
For an average?
Yeah.
If he's going to talk, just give him the mic and identify himself for the tape,
Right.
so, because,
Thank you.
yeah. Our poor secretary will get confused about who's talking.
They are dark sky compliant fixtures.
Okay.
150 watt metal halide fixtures, a minimum of 0.4 foot candles with an average of 2.459. Shown on sheet number 6.
That's all I need, thanks.
It's a very modest lighting plan, 14 and a half foot high and 150 watt is about as low as they go.
Good.
Anyway, back to this, is any, open to the public, is there anyone who'd like to ask him any questions concerning the architecture of the building? Okay, we'll close.
Thank you. I'd like to call our last witness, please, our planner, Les Depenzal.
Actually, still, it's like a barn. Fits in.
Solemnly swear affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'll call you Les. Well, could you please provide a professional experience and background for the benefit of the board and the audience, please?
I've been licensed since 1977 as a professional planner. I have a master's degree from Rutgers University. 1975, I've appeared before this board and the planning board many times in the past.
Thank you. Okay. Listen, you've had an opportunity to review the site application and the surrounding area, master plan?
Yes, and I've, of
And
course...
you're familiar with the zoning ordinance of the town?
Yes.
Could you please explain the current existing use and how the proposed use differs?
Well, the board heard now in excruciating detail, I think. There's, of course, an existing dwelling on the property towards the Elizabeth Avenue. There is a vacant barn or storage building located behind that building as depicted on the site plan. There are a number of other structures that served, obviously, as horse shelters and areas where the horses would be, I guess, corralled by fencing, etc. And the engineer and the landscape architect obviously described the exhibits and described the topography of the property and noted particularly that the perimeter of the property is basically heavily wooded on the southeast, on the south and the eastern ends of the property. And the property is surrounded by heavily wooded areas as well on the south and the east. The only reason why a planner is necessary in this case, in my view, and the reason I think I was brought in, was to address the use variance, the D3. It's certainly the only reason we're before this board. And as usual, Mr. Healy has laid out for you in his report dated April 15th what our proofs are when it comes to a D3 conditional use variance. Basically, a conditional use is a permitted use if you meet all the conditions that pertain solely to the conditional use. And there is a list of those conditions contained within your ordinance, and we meet all of those conditions except one, and that is the buffering. And we've had obvious testimony now as to why that occurred. We've heard that the applicant was asked and met with Township staff, and that there is a large concern, and certainly it makes good planning sense and environmental sense to preserve the mature trees as much as possible while still attempting to meet the intent of that condition, which is, of course, to protect or buffer neighboring property owners, neighboring properties in the neighborhood. Now, when we don't meet the condition, we're in what we call a D3 use variance. What we have to show you, or the proof required, is that the site still remains suitable for the use, given the deviation, in this case only one, from that particular condition. So in this case, the question is, since we are not technically meeting the buffer requirements as stated in the ordinance, can the site still accommodate the use without substantial detriment, given the fact that we can't meet the buffer requirement? Now, again, I'll note it's been stated that the landscaping plan has been prepared in consultation with your staff. Proposed screening will be provided where existing vegetation is lacking. Fencing will be extended in accordance with recommendations. Of course, we know now that the lighting plan has been revised to comply. So I would suggest to the board, this one's an easy call in terms of the D3 variance. It's, I think, pretty obvious that a very mature forest be protected as much as possible, as opposed to knocking down mature trees and providing new landscaping, berming, and fencing in its stead, when you can accomplish both, as the applicant is doing in this case, or when you can provide for the intent of the buffering requirement. In this case, the majority of the perimeter site is very heavily wooded. The applicant has agreed to provide additional buffering and screening wherever the existing vegetation allows, in consultation with Mr. Healy, and the site can accommodate the use and still remain suitable. With regard to the negative criteria, we must show you that there'd be no substantial detriment to surrounding properties or neighborhood, given the existing heavily wooded areas and the additional landscaping and fencing agreed to by the applicant. I think we've done that in this case. And similarly, due to the above, I think the buffer deviation would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of your zone plan or zoning regulations. I know it's late, Mr. Chairman, so I gave you my best, quickest shot.
Okay. Any comments, any questions?
No additional
And
question.
we're open to the public. Anyone want to ask the planner any questions? Okay, we'll close, and before you get your last opportunity, we'll open again to the public. If you have any comment to make, statement to make, anything at all? Come on up, and this time, you need to identify yourself and be sworn in.
I know. Pants on fire, right?
Yes, sir. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and address?
Stillwell, 2029 Amwell Road.
Okay.
Yeah, my question was about the back end of the property. That's where my property meets this property. About the need for the buffer and why the fence doesn't extend all the way around. It's not necessary. You only go 400 feet or so. And I didn't hear anything mentioned about outside of the worship, house of worship, any statues or any such thing as that. That's my question.
Can you have somebody answer that? Those two questions?
To my knowledge, there was no statues proposed, but I could,
Does this relief?
and they're acquiescing, I mean, they're saying yes to that. So there is no statues proposed on the site.
But is this order of relief or this ordinance or relief ordinance?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I don't have it in my hand, but this particular
For the fence?
order of relief, well, we're talking about the relief issue.
Oh, well, we're requesting relief from.
First, call it a relief.
Right.
Buffer requirement.
Right.
For the buffer, the buffering requirement. It's a D3, it's a conditional.
The relief word is the legalese you use in the letter about the ordinance, or
Well, actually, they spoke, the one thing they wanted relief from was the requirement that they install a sidewalk.
relief covers a lot of things.
Well,
The word covers a lot of area.
Right. So,
So I'm saying in the future, under this agreement, we're gonna, whatever happening here.
yeah,
Does it include future?
no, well, it does sort of. And if they want to do anything that we don't allow them to do today, they got to come back and they got to ask again.
All right, my other question was, why didn't the fence extend all the way around the property? And why did it stop there? Because, like the other gentleman said, the trees are high, the canopy is high. The trunks are only thing that could stop the lights from going into the other colors.
I think they can have their engineer testify as to
that-
why it stopped at that point, right?
Sir, would you be able to point on that map where your house is?
Oh, go over there.
On the southern mouth.
Take the mic. I got it, sir.
I won't need the mic, I'll speak louder.
No, you
You missed the point.
Has to be public record, sir.
Meets this property right here.
All right, so I'll describe it for the record. So basically, from that back right corner, your property meets that back right corner, and you're in a south easterly direction from the parking lot.
No, you have to take the mic. You have to take the mic, it has to be on.
Has to be recorded for public record, sir. Thank
Recorded,
you.
it's not that you're not loud enough.
I got the mic,
Good.
right? The other issue I wanted to bring up was the traffic. Do I have to talk to the traffic man?
Ask the question.
I live on Amwell, and the traffic is timed, so Elizabeth Avenue, when the traffic, 15 or 16 cars at every time, I don't care what time of day it is, 15 or 16 cars come from Elizabeth while I'm trying to get out of my driveway. About the same time the cars stop coming from Elizabeth, they're approaching from Van Cleef, which makes it difficult for me, myself, to get in and out of my own driveway on Amwell, because these cars, train is coming from each direction anytime, but mostly in the afternoon, the heaviest during the traffic hours. Now, I was thinking with the amount of cars, 40 or 80 or whatever you were saying there about coming out of Elizabeth, to wait to get onto Amwell, we might need another light in front of this house of worship to allow these people to exit. Because I don't see how it's going to be possible. There's not enough space between Amwell and there.
I think our traffic guy can very easily.
Well, the traffic
answer.
guy, car length is about 20 feet in length.
As far as your first comment about the timing of the traffic signals?
Yes.
That is something that if you contact Somerset County, that's
I
something
don't
they'll
want
look
to
at that.
contact them, no.
Well, I'm saying if you have a question about the coordination between at Van Cleef versus Elizabeth, that's something that's handled by Somerset County traffic engineer.
Right.
As far as the additional traffic that would be added during the weekday PM period, as I indicated, it'd be 6 vehicles over a 60-minute period. It's a minimal increase in traffic. Our analysis show that they'll have a minimal impact on the level of service. Our site driveway, as far as a traffic signal, would
How far from the light?
approximately 600 feet.
Really?
Yes.
You can kind of see it on there, sir, in the bottom left-hand
I
corner.
can see it, but I know that my property from the road to that corner is 485 feet. So from the light to that corner, looks the same to me.
It is, but at the same time, our driveway is up towards the northerly end of the property.
Oh, I see. That's where you'll need the light then.
The issue the gentleman brought up about the screening and why the fence doesn't go along the entirety of the property, I can tell you that one of the places where it came from is staff was dealing with the applicant, and we were looking at places where we felt the screening was most needed, and basically we were trying to concentrate in the areas of the site where there's actually construction. So for example, where the building is and where the parking lot is, that's where we were concentrating the the fencing and the landscaping. You're a little bit in the back. At least in our discussions with the applicants, professionals, we didn't really see the need to put a fence to screen the back of the site. The back of the site's going to remain undeveloped. Perhaps something that the applicant could think about, rather than putting the fence, another 400 feet of fence, maybe kind of wrapping it around the back of the parking lot. I think they can get a lot of bang for their buck. Maybe wrap the fence or wrap the landscaping around the back, and that'll kind of screen that potential view of the parking lot. Putting a fence along the entire property line, you're screening a forest. They're keeping the forest, so what are we screening? I think you want them to screen the parking lot.
Well, another issue I took an issue with it when I was listening, was that the trees that they're planting, the deer aren't going to like, right?
That's the goal.
Right?
Right.
That means that the deer will be further attracted to the trees on my property, right?
You can't have it both ways.
Can't do much about that.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Any other
time.
people wish to speak?
Maybe you could put some sacrificial shrubs somewhere that we just know the deer are going to eat those.
Then we will close to the public. And I trust you will have a brief summary and wrap it all up.
If they could put it around.
Thank you. I believe that, through our testimony, we've certainly established that the use, of course, is inherently beneficial to the property, and the detriment is minimal. The applicant took all steps possible, I think, under the circumstances, to minimize any detriment to the public at large and to the neighborhood. The religious facilities, of course, are a necessity in neighborhoods, and they just go for our entire life. So to allow this in the neighborhood would certainly be consistent with the zoning ordinance and the master plan, as, again, it is a conditional use that's permitted in the area. Basically, that's it. I would like to thank the board. Again, I believe we addressed the positive and negative criteria with this application, and I just ask for the board's decision. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, comments, or motion?
I have a motion. Oh, do you have a?
No, I just wanted to ask Mark, did you suggest that they put a few trees around the corner?
Yeah, I think that could be, I don't think it's going to take that much, especially considering kind of the angle, of the gentleman's house. You talked about, was it 15 to 20? Yeah, I think that plus maybe.
Coordinate with you to wrap those, put some in the gaps and then
Yep.
wrap the other ones to
I think that would work.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we grant Sri Ramanuja Mission, Inc., Shri, right, docket ZBA 13-00006, the required D3 variance to start a house of worship at 619 Elizabeth Avenue, Somerset, subject to the following conditions. The hours of operation of the facility during the week will be 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock in the morning, and then 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 8 o'clock in the evening. On the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, the time will be open, will be from 8 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. in the evening. The lighting will be focused downward, box-style lighting, dark sky compliant, with lights operating on separate circuits for different areas of the parking lot, with the areas more distant from the worship building being able to be turned off separately from the other lighting. That all lights will be turned off, including the lights on the signage, 1 hour after the hours of operation have concluded. The driveway width will be subject to discussion with Mr. House. The landscape buffering will be subject to agreement with Mr. Healy. They will have 15 to 20 extra trees to fill in holes in the canopy caused by the hurricane, and also to wrap around the corner of the parking lot to shield some of the owners where the fencing and the buffering do not proceed. And also that the owner will retain responsibility for upkeep of the fencing and the replacement of any trees that die. They will be required to put in sidewalks or make payment in lieu thereof. That no amplification of the service or any activities outside of the church, including any call to worship, will be permitted. That there will be no statuary on the facility.
You got everything tonight. We didn't need Mr. Bradshaw.
Okay. That the home will be occupied only by the priest and his family, that the capacity will be limited to 120 people at any one time, and that oh, yes. Now, were these made an exhibit?
Yes.
Okay, and the building will be substantially the same as the renderings that were presented to us as exhibit
It's,
4 and A5, I believe?
A4 and A5.
Yeah, wait a minute, you can't have 100 people. The architect's drawing says occupancy load is 68.
Well, I would say the occupancy load is either limited to what construction and fire or the parking, whichever is the lower. That's typically.
Okay, well, I'll accept that friendly amendment.
And we need a second.
I did have a couple others, believe it or not.
I'll second it.
You had no weddings, no funerals,
Right?
all activity inside the building,
Right.
Right,
no daycare, no school.
right.
They're going to replace the white pine.
Well, I have you working with them on that, so.
Yep.
I'm not, yeah, compliance with the report's 8-inch water line, okay.
I'll accept all those friendly amendments.
And no kitchen facilities. Oh, and I have a question. You don't want them to be able to separately rent the home, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Now we'll entertain a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Poll, or
Mr. Betterbid,
Yes.
Mr. McCracken,
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
yes, I'm particularly happy that it actually still kind of looks like a barn. It actually fits in,
Good luck.
all right?
Thank you, thank you.
We need a motion to move into executive session.
Move.
Discuss litigation as soon as we can clear the facility. So do we have that motion?
Move that we go into executive.
Okay,
think statuary.
Second.
be in an executive session momentarily, otherwise the meeting is adjourned.
We need to get these guys out here.
Yeah, they're just making sure they're parked, so.